think we found it. The Temple of Mara. Did you bring your blindfold? If legend is to be believed, and it rarely is, mind you, the patron deity here is a bit, shy. And don't touch anything. Judging by the state of this place, all the most impressive pieces here will be broken in the next couple of years. We on? Reporting to you live, this is Disneylander here at the site of the now infamous Temple of the Forbidden Eye, where Dr. Indiana Jones has still not been found. Now, he is lost inside the temple, we believe, and the search is on... Pardon me. I'm being handed a document here. Says, Epic Secrets Revealed, Indiana Jones Ride. Must watch, click now. Now, I am not entirely sure what that means, but it does also note here that we now apparently know all of the secrets and history of the Temple of the Forbidden Eye itself. And with that, I will now send you over to our tour guide. Bram, please take it away for the tour. This is very exciting, breaking ground right now here at the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Take it to you, Bram.
Hi! I'm Bram. Today I will indeed be your tour guide on a very detailed walkthrough, ride-through of the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. So first, a big thanks to Disneylander. Let's give him a hand. Another big thanks to real-life Indiana Jones at the beginning of the video. We could give him another hand. And another shout-out to Green Screen. I gotta be honest, I don't really know how to use it super well. I had a little trouble lighting it, so we'll see how well it works today, but cool, new green screen. Today we're gonna be looking over some of the physical props, the sets, the ride design, and a lot of the other secrets and things like little hidden Easter eggs and effects that no longer work on the ride. It's gonna be a little different than videos have been so far in the Forbidden Eye, but I'm excited for this one because we're really just gonna get to it. We spent so much time setting up how the ride came into existence, and now we're just gonna go ahead and ride it, right, everybody? This is gonna be great. Before we begin, it is worth noting that during the 14 months in which Disneyland was closed, the Indiana Jones adventure got a refurbishment. It was $300,000, and it was the first real full-sized refurbishment that the ride has had in its 26 years of existing. Now, it has been shut down for little modifications and tweaks, but this is the first real refurbishment, and it was massively overdue. Most rides get refurbished on a pretty regular basis, but because this is such a major e-ticket attraction, I'm pretty sure they waited until Star Wars Land was open to finally shut this ride down for an extended period of time. And then, of course, COVID hit and they shut everything down for an extended period of time. But it does seem like they still went ahead with the refurbishment. Mostly, I believe it was on the mechanical side, touching up the tracks and vehicles and things like that. But a lot of the rock work was repainted and the ride looks really, really good. $300,000 is not a lot of money in the scheme of the $100 million that's estimated for this ride to have been built back in '95. So it's not like they made any major changes, but it is worth noting. And with that, we'll go ahead and get to our tour. A special thank you to LMG Vids. I'll be using a walkthrough, or we will be using a recent walkthrough, ride-through of the ride from him. He's got great content. Check out the channel. Link right below, but let's get to the tour. Here we are, right in front of the Temple of the Forbidden Eye in Disneyland, California. Backing up even a little bit before this video even gets rolling, this beautiful sign, check this thing out. Does my green screen even work? I don't know, but this looks amazing. This sign is hand carved. It's very cool. It blends right into the Adventureland surrounding. It's not some big, bold, light up in your face kind of thing. It's just the right amount of intricacy, but it's like ominous in a way. Like, welcome to the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. These two snakes here are the first two of over 2,100 snakes contained within the temple. Snakes are kind of a thing. So let's get on the tour. Oh, this is delightful, everybody. Can you just imagine we're here walking through the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Okay, I will skim ahead a little bit though. This is the exterior queue, and right here you are greeted by this Mercedes truck, this very cool Explorer truck, and it says Lost Delta Archaeological Expedition on it, which is that expedition that we talked so much about last week. It has this kind of Illuminati triangle. I don't know what that's about. If you've watched the movies, this Mercedes truck might be a little bit familiar with you. This is actually a prop from the first Indiana Jones movie, which is really cool. This is not just a recreation, this is physically the prop that was used in filming, and it now just sits for people to walk past all day, which is great, because so many props, I don't know what happens to a lot of props, so whenever one is reclaimed and reused, especially in something like this, I'm all for it. As we go farther into this queue, there's lots of excavated artifacts lying about, things just sitting around, and there's more traces of this expedition. They have their generator set up here. Now this generator is really fantastic. You're just seeing this now and it kind of just looks like a dusty, rusty generator, but it really is, it's very cool. There's sounds that play with this generator, this humming sound that plays as the generator spins and runs. And the sound is tied, well, the generator appears to be connected to all of the lights. So all of the lights through the exterior queue, down into the temple, all the way through the boarding area. The idea is that it's all powered by this one generator right here out front. And this generator sounds like it's kind of wheezing and whirring and struggling. And as it makes those sounds, as the generator kind of chugs along, the lights all throughout the queue kind of dim and flicker a bit too. They're not steady. So it is like this 1 week generator powering lights for the whole entire temple that this expedition has set up. But back to the queue. This is the exterior standby line where there's a couple of switchbacks. Nowadays, most of your time in line, if you are doing standby, will be spent right here. And now in this video, Jungle Cruise is a little boarded up. It's under refurbishment at the time of this recording. But farther off to the left, at the top of the Jungle Cruise building, on really busy days, this standby queue will actually start to utilize the roof of the Jungle queue as a bit of an overflow, which is kind of cool. I've only actually gotten to go up there once or twice for the Indy queue. I mean, not cool because the line is obviously very long when that's the case, but cool just because that's something that they do that you don't see every day. But that might not even be true any longer. Disney has actually been recently testing a virtual queue for Indiana Jones, which means at a certain point in the day when the line gets a little too backed up, you can no longer go stand in standby, but you have to click on your phone, join queue, and then when it's your time, you'll be called over to the ride. I have very mixed feelings about virtual queues, but that's something worth making a whole video on down the line if Disney does tend to lean farther into that. And then here, the switchbacks are for the standby, like I said. There's this bridge to the right on the right-hand side. Well, here's a pillar. Very nice pillar. Now that bridge right there on the right, that kind of leads up to the temple because the temple stairways are so eroded. Oh, great. Thank you, LMG. There's the eroded temple stairways, but the bridge up is the fast pass entrance. Now, when the ride first opened, most of the queue was standing inside. Only on a very busy day did the queue back up all the way to the switchbacks outside. But nowadays, because of fast pass, the standby queue is outside, and then the fast pass goes straight up that bridge and into the building. So let's get in this temple. Enough riff-raff for this exterior, but we'll pause right away. This is the entry temple, this first little antechamber where we see the first depiction of Mara. This is Mara standing here with his eyes benevolently closed. It shows the 3 gifts that Mara gives. We can see the chalice here with gold pouring out. That's for the earthly riches. We see the vase with water pouring out for the fountain of youth. And the necklace Mara is wearing is representing that is the observatory of the future. We'll go ahead and keep on going. This next section, I want to refer a lot in this video to this map here. Again, very awesome map. There's a lot of notes that tell us what these rooms and these chambers are, including this one. This is the buried colonnade. And now this is a section of the temple that used to be this big kind of colonnade chamber place. Most of it has been buried by an ancient flood, so you just have this one little pathway. But before that, here's the Obelisk of Doom, which is this beautiful little obelisk that depicts 4 ways that you might go ahead and die. So first we see the mural of Mara's gifts that you might get, and here we see the obelisk of ways that you might die. So you know what? The temple really tells you what's in store. The 4 ways you might die that are depicted here on the obelisk: death by snakes, death by rats, death by fire, and death by spikes. So now we'll get into the greater buried colonnade. There's a little more artwork of Mara here. I do really like this little Easter egg that LMG catches. This chamber right here, I didn't notice for a long time. There's a little skeleton man in there. It's a bit dark in this video. Right here, skeleton man, just hanging out where no one even looks. Why not, right? So here in the buried colonnade, there's a little bit of artwork, some more depictions of Mara, eyes still closed, and you can see how much of this area has crumbled with the bamboo poles still holding it up. These are touches that you walk past and never even notice. I never even considered, oh, this part of the temple has collapsed because of a flood and is now being held up by bamboo poles. This is the Avenue of Voices, which is a long straight path, which I've always thought as one of the weaker thematic areas of the queue, but it serves a more practical purpose. It is a slow slope down, the purpose to bring you below, so that this archway that you see in front of you is the startings of a tunnel that will basically take you underground. Right here you are now pretty much underground. So that you can go under the Disneyland Railroad, as we discussed last week. So this whole Avenue of Voices, yeah, it's just a long straight slope, but it is functionally getting you under the Disneyland Railroad so that you can get to that good show building. And now here we can see on the map that there used to be some much longer corridors right here. I think that's a pretty cool touch. But they broke a hole in the wall right here, and you could tell the Imagineering there that there's marglyphs that used to form a full sentence across both sides, but they chipped into it and found this big cavern of bats. This bat cavern, which as the map shows here, actually extends all the way out and above the temple. I think that's just so cool. Just seeing this map makes me feel like this temple's even bigger than it is, and it's already huge, mind you. So that normal path has been blocked, but the Bat Cave provides another pathway deeper in the temple. The map notes that there is apparently rabid bats, so that's something to watch out for. But apart from that, I do like the Bat Cave. This, as I said last week, is right where you're actually going physically under the tracks of the Disneyland Railroad. Past the Bat Cave, we reach the Spike Chamber, which is the first of the real obvious booby traps that we see here in Mara's temple, which is weird to me thematically why you would go through this Bat Cave and then have a hallway of booby traps. I don't really know. Anyways, this room is really cool. This room has spikes all around, obviously, skulls. It is that classic Indiana Jones Temple of Doom closing spiked room, a booby trap, which I really do love. And of course, there's this bamboo pole here, which you can tug on. This is the bamboo pole. The map notes that Indy means to replace this coming up, but of course he is now lost inside of the temple at this point. But this pole, this bamboo pole, if you give it a tug, will usually trigger an effect. This effect is turned off almost as often as it's turned on, but when it's fully functional, you yank the pole. Don't be afraid to really yank it. It has a little bit of time to reset, but if you just pull it a little bit, it won't always go. In my experience, if you really yank it like you're trying to break pieces of Disney property, which I don't recommend, except for in this one case, it usually does trigger the effect almost every time, where the pole will bend. I can't really bend because you see my arm is not flexible in that way, but the pole will bend, a very loud sound effect will go off, and the roof will appear to descend. Now, in a good working day, the roof will actually descend a little bit. The spikes stay put because they're in holes so that they don't like bump anyone on the head, but the roof itself does descend a little bit right there. We can then go right on to the Hall of Descending Blocks. This is another great room. It says, "Do not step on diamonds." And right above each of the diamonds on the floor is a big chunk of stone. And all of these have been held up by a little piece of wood or bamboo. It really doesn't seem safe at all for tourists. There's like door stoppers wedging this. But if you look to the left here, especially this one right here on the left, that is a big column of stone. That's what comes falling upon your head should you step on one of the diamonds on the floor. So I don't really know how a couple bamboo sticks are holding that, because I would imagine that weighs a lot. Anyways, let's keep going on forwards into the Rotunda calendar. This is one of the most stunning rooms of the queue, obviously. The big open chamber. I feel like when people think of the queue, this is probably right where their mind goes. And now there's this big mural of Mara. You can even see the bridge in front of him. This is a good indicator that later in the ride, the Mara that you see across the bridge with the decrepit skeletal face that we'll see in a little bit here is indeed Mara, because this is how he's supposed to look wherever in the temple this Mara is at. But here's a mural depicting Mara. I think it's very cool. If we look at once again, the map here, Indy notes that tunnels will direct sunlight. And if you look at the roof in this room, you can indeed see little like circles where light is shining into the Rotunda calendar. And Indy notes that tunnel will direct sunlight to shine on specific points in the mural, and it's something, as Indy notes, that the creators of the temple used as a calendar to plant crops or something along those lines. I mean, who needs to know that? Nobody, but I love it. See, that's why you're watching this video still. Indy's map also notes that this well here, we can get to this well, is not actually a well at all. There's this stone blocking the well, and the well has a rope that you can tug on, another thing that you can interact with. When you do tug on the rope, it sounds like you kill a man, pretty much. There's some guy using the rope as he's like chiseling his way down or something, and it sounds like he falls. So I don't know why that's okay. But yeah, you just kill a man, which is appropriate because, as the map notes, down below is a burial chamber, an ancient burial chamber that Indy claims leads to a whole network of catacombs, a whole vast maze of catacombs. Just again, this map, I wish Disney would sell as merchandise because it adds so much. It makes the temple feel so much bigger when you're suddenly thinking of rooms that you can't even see because they don't exist. Anyways, we'll carry on past the Rotunda calendar, right on in to the altar of stone tablets, which is also just the theater room, I think is a better way to refer to it. Here is where you see the safety video with Sala. You'll usually stand in this line a little bit. They kind of let the room, normal operating procedures, I don't know what they're doing right now, but they kind of let the room fill up a little bit so you can watch the videos, where you see the safety video with Sala explaining delightfully the safety procedures for the ride and what to expect for the ride. And then there are 3 different newsreels that give more of the story. Anyways, here we are at the reason this room is called the altar of the stone tablets is because of these 3 tablets here, which again depict the 3 gifts that Mara will bestow to his faithful worshippers: the Observatory of the Future, the Fountain of Youth, and the Earthly Riches. And then we get to Indy's office. Past Indy's office on the map is more uncharted sections of the temple, but Indy has just decided to just put up a little caged office here. I don't know what he was thinking, but inside this office are a lot of wonderful things. There's those letters that we were talking about last week that give more context to the story. Some more props. There is a magazine with Mickey Mouse on it as a little hidden Mickey. There's a box in there that says "Delivered to Club Obi-Wan," obviously a reference to Star Wars' Obi-Wan Kenobi. Lots of fun stuff to look at in that office. I have actually asked a cast member, or not even asked, you can kind of just stop and let people pass you if you want to, peer your eyes in there a little bit. There's a lot of fun to be found in Indy's office because it is so jam-packed full of trinkets. But we keep on going up this way. This is, that's probably the end of where the queue is exciting. The rest of the queue is fine, but really the objective of the rest of the queue is to just get you to the boarding area, get you on the ride. Now, the boarding area itself has a lot to take in. This is actually one of the coolest areas of the whole entire queue, not just because it's where you finally get on the ride. I love all the roots that are creeping through to here. You feel like you are just underground enough for tree roots to be coming down into your location. But more importantly than that, this room has a smell. And I honestly could not tell you if this is a smell that Disney pipes into the room or if this is a smell that is just a byproduct of the ride itself. It smells a little like gasoline-ish, like mechanical, like there's a bunch of Jeeps idling and running inside of the room. Some more things going on here. The ride operators have this little Buddha that is apparently, now I don't know how true or often this happens, but it's referred to as the breakdown Buddha, and supposedly cast members will offer little trinkets to him in hopes that the ride will not break down during their shift. I feel like that's kind of just folklore, but I like it anyways. Now we're on board. Now we're buckled up. I would tell you to put your blindfolds on, but you're watching a video, so I suppose you're excused for this time. There's this depiction right here above the entrance to the Chamber of Destiny. We could see here a depiction of Mara reading the minds of his worshippers. He has these little lightning bolts going from his head to these little people surrounding him, and that is what I believe is representing Mara saying, oh, you want visions of the future, you want eternal youth. That's the depiction of that. And then Mara also has a blindfold on, which you could tell was not originally there. It looks like the archaeologists boarded up a little blindfold, because maybe this was a depiction of Mara with his eyes open and that just wouldn't fly. But you could tell he's burning through. There's little red dots there because his eyes are just so powerful. He's got a powerful stare, let me tell you. Okay, we made it to the ride. We're on board Indiana Jones and we're going to ride it together. This first room is a doozy, but here's the Chamber of Destiny, where your 3 choices are laid out in front of you. This room contains what is probably the most infamous defunct effect at Disneyland. You see, this room used to have an effect where it would appear that your vehicle, your ride vehicle, would either go through the left door, through the middle door, or through the right door, when there's only, in reality, one track. Now, me as a child, I did not fathom how this worked. When the ride first opened up through 2015, the left door was always the Observatory of the Future, the center door was always the Chamber of Riches, and the right door was always the Fountain of Youth. Me as a child thought, well, there has to be 3 tracks, and there has to be 3 rooms, which means 3 giant idols of Mara. And how at the end of the room does it reconnect back to the rest of the ride? It just blew my mind. But the effect was, I don't want to say simple, but incredibly clever. There's one track that goes through to one door that opens, but there was 5 doors, the one real door and 2 dummy doors on either side of it. And now the room itself had 3 archways, 3 doorways. I have this little animated image here that explains it better than I'm explaining it right now, but the whole room itself would rotate so that either the left door would align with the true door and there'd be 2 dummy doors on the right, or the center door would align with the true door and there'd be a dummy door on the left and right, or the right door would align with the dummy door and there'd be, or the real door, and there'd be 2 dummy doors on the left. A super clever effect that no longer exists. I don't know for sure why this effect no longer exists. I think the maintenance was just too high. My guess is that this was one of the major reasons the ride shut down so frequently. And in its last years, like I said, this effect ran through 2015, but in its last years, I almost 100% of the time went through the middle door. I think that was its B mode. If the rotating room wasn't working, you would always go through the Chamber of Destiny. That's the history. Nowadays, we have this projection mapping, which is honestly not as cool, but still extremely cool. We get projections, so you always go through the middle door no matter what. The room doesn't rotate, but the middle door can appear to be the Chamber of Earthly Riches, the Fountain of Youth, or the Observatory of the Future, and the other 2 side doors are projected to be the other things. So in this video, as we can see, it looks like he got the Fountain of Youth. And so on the left, it looks like the projections. If we look above, it looks like there's iconography saying that the left is the Chamber of Earthly Riches with those pots of gold. To the right, the Observatory of the Future with those images of the eyeball. But down the center are the images of the vases with flowing water. It looks, obviously this flowing water here, there's light effects on it that look like projections. But above on the headboard, the goblets with gold and the vases with water and the symbols with the eye look like carvings. They don't look like projections, but those are projections. You have to look really closely at them as you go under to identify them as projections, but they are so well made because they can flip between each other and the doors can change from ride to ride. So now we are in the Hall of Promise. Again, as we mentioned last week, if you were to not look into Mara's eyes, this is not where you're drinking from the Fountain of Youth. There's a big fountain behind Mara, according to this map. But you are in the Hall of Promise. Depending on which room you're in, the lighting and effects change in the room. Here in the Fountain of Youth, the lighting is blue. There's these rippling water effects that we can see on the walls, like there's water down there. Statues pouring out water. We see that statue straight in front of us now. Here in the Chamber of Earthly Riches, the color scheme is obviously gold and there's piles of treasures. The walls that are in the Fountain of Youth are actually scrims, so when lighting is cast on the other side of them, they become see-through, where you can then see these idols of gold and riches. And then my personal favorite, I think most people's personal favorite, is the Observatory of the Future, where all the lights are shut off and these purple stars are cast everywhere, and the colors of the walls and ceiling become purple and amazing. Mara himself also changes. With that update in 2015, Mara got a major upgrade. While the Chamber of Destiny, the rotating room, got a bit of a downgrade, Mara got an upgrade. Old Mara, if we look at him now, when you look into his eyes, his way of getting angry is to start pluming smoke out of his pupils. I don't really understand what that was supposed to be. It was kind of just something a little bit cool, but it didn't really mean anything. Now Mara also has the projection mapping here. So as we enter the chamber, we can see Mara has his eyes closed, and then he opens his eyes. It looks like he opens his eyes, and then he sees that you're looking at him, and he's like,
dude, come on. You looked into my eyes, bro? What did I just tell you for so long?
Mara also has different effects depending on the room. Here, as we see in the Fountain of Youth, Mara has flowers blooming around him, and as he sees you looking into his eyes, his face cracks and becomes gray, and the flowers age and wither. Very cool. In the Chamber of Earthly Riches, Mara looks like a gold, but as he notices you look into his eyes, he tarnishes and then becomes molten. He like turns into lava. So much for Golden Mara. And then in the Observatory of the Future, Mara's kind of like this swirling purple, and then he sees you looking in his eyes and he becomes red and lightningy. I don't really know what that one represents. I personally think the best Mara projections are in the Fountain of Youth here. I love this effect where we see him, he's mad at you, his face cracks, and then you are whisked away into right there. We're gonna pause right there. A bit blurry, but if you were to have gone through that door, as the map denotes, you would have gone and received your gift. However, you swerve farther to the left, to the Tunnel of Torment. Now you might be questioning, why didn't I just drive forward? Mara saw me look into his eyes, but if the Fountain of Youth is through there, I wanna go through there. The Tunnel of Torment right here has what must be the coolest but maybe least known series of effects. What is supposed to happen here is that you are driving straight, your headlights are on, you want to go to receive your gift, and suddenly Mara takes control. Mara picks up your vehicle and whisks you off into the Tunnel of Torment. Now you can still see this here a little bit, where the car suddenly has a bit of a floaty effect. It's rocking a little bit more, almost as if you're on a cloud. Mara is carrying your vehicle. You're not in control of it anymore for a little bit. Now this video is a little deceiving. It's supposed to be darker, but also in original versions of the ride, it was much more filled with fog. And so all of the edges were less visible and the lightning was seen through a little bit of fog. And so this whole room looked as if it was kind of falling apart as lightning rippled through it. And that cloud on the ground, that heavy fog, also gave the effect of floating. Now, a really, really cool effect that I did not even know about until I saw in this video recently. The vehicle is going forward here, and here's this historical video from opening year. And if you watch the Gates of Doom. Indy is holding shut the Gates of Doom. Mara is trying to carry you into the Gates of Doom where you will die. Indy is holding it shut, and the vehicle again is floating out of your control. But if we watch right here, Indy shuts the Gates of Doom. Watch again. He shuts the gates. The gates appear to be open a crack, and then Indy shoves and it shuts. And the second Indy shuts the gates, the vehicle lurches down. Watch one more time. The vehicle is floating and floating. Indy shuts the gate and the vehicle lurches. This is supposed to be Indy closing the Gates of Doom, and Mara no longer has control, and you regain control of your vehicle and are able to drive up and left. We can still see what's left of this effect here in 2021. The vehicle still has this bit of a floaty movement here, but right about here, Watch the nose of the vehicle, it thuds down a little bit. That's right when Indy was supposed to shut the gates. This Indiana Jones animatronic was updated at some point. I'm actually not so sure when. The original Indy kind of had his butt stuck in the gates, but now Indy's kind of leaning his shoulder against it. And one old effect that the recent refurbishment did touch up again, if we look behind Indy here as we approach the Gates of Doom, there's this shadow silhouette of Indy on the wall. It's not truly a shadow of the animatronic, it's a spotlight with a little cutout shaped like Indiana Jones, but it does the job well. It's a nice little silhouette. And then we are whisked away to the left into our first little dark hallway, and now as we turn to the left, we see our first view of Mara, of the decrepit Mara, and the Cavern of Bubbling Death. Now this Mara is falling apart, as we can see. He's 45 feet tall, so it's this massive depiction of Mara, again 45 feet tall, has fire in one of his eyeballs, and he's shooting lasers at you. Now, we can see Mara shoot lasers, and as he does, there's this little cannon effect right there. Green laser gets shot, little cannon of smoke and light, and a sound effect of an explosion. Another very notorious defunct effect on the Indiana Jones adventure. Around opening day, there was this effect where Mara would shoot the ceiling and crumble the roof. It would look like Mara physically destroyed part of the roof as physical props fell. Now, what the props were was a sheet of ice that had been dyed, and the ice was cracked down right as Mara shot. This effect supposedly only lasted a couple months. This is the only video I know of where you can really see it in action. This is like the only proof that it ever existed, but it is the ice effect as Mara shoots it. The sound effect is still there of the rubble crumbling away, but the rubble no longer crumbles away, and it hasn't for a long time. Very cool effect, a physical prop, but apparently it took a long time to reset. Lots of upkeep and maintenance. It only worked, supposedly, 1 in 4 vehicles. That's how long the effect took to reset. So nowadays they just opt for this little smoke cannon. Pretty cool. Then we go into the mummy chamber where there's lots of neon lights, lots of mummies. There's fans blowing air at you, so it's supposed to feel like wind rushing through this tunnel. It also just kind of feels like you're going fast, but there's big industrial fans hiding in there, blowing air at you. There's a king skeleton back here, which I think is a little interesting. There's also a skeleton hiding in here. I've never seen it in person because you go through this room so fast, but there is a skeleton with Mickey ears on with the name embroidered, Bones. So Bones is a cool guy. He hangs out with all these other dead people. This chamber is not one of my favorites, but it's pretty cool. Right there. That's one of those big industrial fans that's blowing wind at you for whatever reason through the mummy chamber. You get another little preview of the big Cavern of Bubbling Death, and then you go into the bug room, which is a pretty cool effect. It's just a projector. It looks like your headlights are shining and the wall is just covered in bugs, and then there's little shots of air. Supposedly supposed to feel like bugs falling or crawling on you. It kind of just feels like an air cannon shooting at you. Plenty cool room nonetheless, but then you get to the room, the overlook of the Cavern of Bubbling Death, the best view of this decrepit Mara. This thing is so cool. Again, 45 feet tall, fire in its eyes, shooting lasers at you. It's absolute madness. What is supposed to happen here, another little timing, if you look straight across the bridge right here, there is another vehicle that looks like it's about to get on the bridge, and you kind of flash headlights at each other. So it's an effect that when it's timed well, it almost looks like a vehicle's gonna come head on and crash with you in the bridge before it swerves off down into the mudslide. This bridge used to have a lot more real fire. There used to be a lot of big real fireball effects, but instead we just noticed another one of them right there. Instead of real fire, they've kind of opted to replace Mara's laser shots with just a little puff of smoke and light. I think that's fine. It's easier to reset, but man, there's still a real fireball or two in the ride, but having them that close to you where you could feel the heat, I can only imagine how cool that was. Also up here at the edge of the bridge are these very cool snake statues with a green light that are just kind of pouring fog out of their mouth. I don't really know what's going on with them, but I do like them. And then you get to the snake temple, which is just a room with more snakes. And then there's this cool giant cobra. Animatronic is often broken. I haven't seen this thing. It should have a full range of motion where it lunges kind of at the vehicle and does a little mouth thing, but nah, he just kind of hisses at you. He's not actually very frightening. Maybe the least scary thing in the ride. He kind of looks a little too cartoony. The lava looks good. I believe the lava in the Cavern of Bubbling Death was redone a bit during the refurbishment. And then you get into the mudslide. Rumor has it, so the Imagineers say, there are 1,995 skulls in this chamber. 1995 being the year that the ride opened. If that's true, cool, why not? And then there's a little scrim here with the Spirit of Mara. Now, I've been debated on if this is just supposed to be a ghoul or Mara. Look at the crown. It's Mara's crown. This is Mara saying, hey, you're not dead, man. Come on. It's time for you to die. So he's, coming at you. It's a very simple effect. It's just a painting on a scrim that kind of flashes. Something I find really charming about this, though, this is an effect that I think is really cool. This ghost apparition of Mara often distracts from the 1995 skulls that I'm trying to count otherwise. And then we go on down, get our ground level view here of the Cavern of Bubbling Death. That is the one real fireball that is pretty consistent when you ride the ride. You go from one of the coolest rooms, though, into the worst room. Now, this room is the rat cave. It does serve a function. The video's still playing, by the way. It's just darkness. And this darkness does serve a function. Your vehicle will just about always stall out in this darkness, and you'll just kind of rumble a little bit in the dark. The point of this is to time the ride so that the grand finale, the boulder scene, can properly reset before you get going to it. I don't know why it's darkness. I really think that they could have put something fun to look at here, some kind of prop, something or other, but instead it's just darkness. And if you look to your right, there's some vines hanging and you can kind of make out the walls and the emergency exits. It's bad. And then once the timer has reset and your vehicle is going again, you reach the rat log, which I think is the single worst effect in any Disney ride ever. And you know how much I love this ride. I do hate this effect. It is a wall of fog that is being projected onto. It's supposed to show a log with some rats running across it. I guess a lot of people have a phobia of rats. Also, if we remember all the way back to the Obelisk of Doom, one of the ways you might die in the temple is by rats. So I understand why it's here. The effect is not very good. It looks like after the refurbishment, it's a little better. In this video here, the fog wall is pretty steady, but the thing is there's always too much motion and the fog wall is not very powerful. So most of the time I feel like people who go on the ride don't know what they're supposed to be looking at. They hear the squeaking of the rats and say, what is this lump? You can kind of tell right here that it's rats running on a log. Still not a very good effect. I don't understand it. Then you get to the dart room. This room is oftentimes kind of hated on. I don't really understand why. People like to joke that Disney ran out of money and couldn't afford real skeletons, so they just painted some neon paint on the wall. Kind of true, but I don't think it's supposed to be real skeletons. It's supposed to be art on the wall as these darts are shooting at you. And this room is admittedly cooler in Tokyo, as is the previous room, but we'll see that next week, a little spoiler for you. But in this room, more air guns are shooting at you, and it's supposed to be like poison darts shooting out of the wall at you. Another reference to the very opening scene of the first Indiana Jones movie, just some classic Indiana Jones temple booby traps. My family growing up always had a fun time pretending like we're dodging darts as we're going through this room. Increases the fun factor. I do highly recommend it. And then you swerve to the right for the final real room of the ride, the Boulder Room. Here where Indy is hanging, saying, hey, I'm hanging here. Can you let me drop on into your Jeep? But then a giant boulder starts. Let's just watch this effect before I really talk about it too much. Indy's hanging here and you see this boulder rolling at you, this big boulder, and it seems like you start to back up, but then you end up driving forward right underneath this boulder. We watched it, now we can talk about it. It's a very cool effect. It feels like your car moves backwards, but the trick is your vehicle, your ride vehicle, never moves backwards. In fact, during that time when it feels like you're moving backwards, you are staying in place and it's kind of shaking to make it feel like it's moving backwards. The boulder is moving forward a little bit, not as much as it appears to be, mind you, but the whole tunnel, along with the Indiana Jones animatronic attached to it, is moving backwards. The car stays in place, the tunnel moves because the ride vehicles cannot physically move backwards. They're designed only to move forward. The tunnel and the animatronic move backwards, the boulder moves forward a little bit, and it really looks like this massive boulder running down a whole hallway at you before your car, which was just sitting there, drives forward a little bit and then drives down. Such a cool effect. And then you return to base to see Indy one last time. I'm not honestly sure how the boulder got there. It seems like it should be behind you. But if we look at the map one more time, the boulder landed right on top of the exit tunnel for those that actually got Mara's gifts. So if you got Mara's gifts, you would have gone through this little pathway, gone right over here, popped out right here. So you might have just crushed real people who just received gifts from Mara under that boulder. So congratulations on that. And there you have the Indiana Jones Adventure Ride. The exit of the queue is a lot less exciting. You just kind of walk down a lot less detailed version of what you walked in on, but it's still nice. There's still some lots of sights to see on your way out. This ride is fantastic, but a lot of the effects no longer work. As we described all the major things as we just rode through there, the ride is not as cool as it was when it opened in 1995. I have to say that, even though I never rode it in 1995. Still my all-time favorite attraction, but I would love to see what it used to be. That being said, there is a version of the ride that works better and has better special effects over in Tokyo, and that's another teaser for next week's video. Thank you so much for joining me. This video, very different than the other two so far, but I hope you did enjoy it. That's all my insight. That's what people have to suffer through when they travel to Disneyland with me pointing at literally everything and saying, hey, look at that, it's cool. And they say, yes, Bram, I know it's cool. But again, thank you so much for watching. Next week, we'll get a little back more into history, a little back more into fun facts that you might not be aware of at all as we travel to Florida, Paris, and Tokyo. But again, that is for next week. Thank you so much for watching. Share the video with a friend, do all that kind of stuff, and I'm just gonna stop right now while I'm ahead. Bye!